Tudo bem, Flávia?
Muito bom. E a senhora, dona Nina?
Estamos bem. Eu aqui, meu filho, aqui junto.
Que
E
bom.
vocês estão bem? Tu e tua família?
Graças a Deus, estamos bem.
Com esse frio de 0 grau, hein? Oh, meu Deus do céu. A nordestina vindo para cá nessa época, eu fico contando. Mas está tudo bem aqui. É só não sair na rua. Tem muita gente hoje?
Hi guys! Hola amigos! Let's sing all together! Vamos todos juntos cantar en inglés. Come on, my friend, come to the light. And with all our heart and soul, let's follow Jesus Christ. Let us preach the peace, let us preach the love. In this world already wonderful, will be much more. Get up, look at the sky. And the earth where the flowers bloom with sunshine. Let us hold our hands and be together on this road. When we take peace and love and spread it to the world. Good vibes, laughter, and shout outs. So into the Lord, always follow the footsteps of our Lord. All roads that I shall walk on. So in seasons of peace, these lights that keep shining. Brighter, brighter, oh. We'll be brighter, brighter, oh. We'll be brighter, brighter, oh. Now, guys, let's sing everybody working with the vowels. My life is very happy night and day. With thee I really feel a bunch of energy. The eyes shows me how important it is to give. I am over helpful, that's how I love to live. Oh, working is so good, it's good. Oh, working is so good, it's good. Oh, it's so good. A-E-I-O. You have a lot of work to do, and I'm inviting you to U-O-I-E. Dedicating heart and soul, I am happy every day. A-I-O-U. I'm inviting you to U-O-I-E. I am happy every day. A-I-O-U. I'm inviting you to U-O-I-E. I am happy every day. Every day. Every day. Bye-bye. Let's go on. Let's go on. Beijos.
Hey you, if you think about choosing the world, you know you are not alone. If we go together, be easier. Feel good, it's like climbing the highest hill to touch the stars and feel Jesus Christ in your heart. Charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul, light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way. And then, while the new world doesn't come, you have to change what is holding us. Together we can believe to get to the desired promised land. Keep your head and embrace the world. It's up to us, so let's go. Because charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul, light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way. Charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul, light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way.
Love in action. Oh Jesus, here I am, my knees on the floor to say thank you, my Lord, for the lights that comes through this door. Your love is the key to change the entire world. Using these chains wisely, we will live in peace and harmony. Now I understand, helping others is helping myself. Your words now are crystal clear. Your teachings have no frontier. To see all this transformation, we just have to put love in action.
All the space
Father, for the opportunity of being here tonight, being together with our friends to learn about Jesus at home. Let's ask God and the good spirits to be by our side, to make the environment of our houses clean, harmonizing us and all those who live in the same house as us, so we can be prepared and we can have our hearts open for all the teachings and the blessings that we are going to learn and receive tonight. So be it.
Hear me okay? Wonderful. Welcome everyone to our Tuesday night public meeting where we'll be studying Jesus at Home from the book Jesus in the Home. And we are super excited about this message tonight because this is going to be a talk about inviting Jesus into our home. And this book, it's a beautiful book. It's a series of short gospel at home lessons. So it's available in English and in Portuguese. And it's quite a beautiful book. So welcome. We're very glad that you are here. So, in the first chapter of this book, Jesus sets this intention, right? He says, it says that Jesus glanced around the room, took a short break, and then continued, Peter, we need to shine a new light for all who might seek our fraternal assistance. And what is interesting to call out here is that Jesus said a new light. And this new light is, and what this book focuses on is not just the teachings of the gospel or necessarily studying them at home, but it's making each of the gospel teachings into a short, manageable lesson that's bite-sized, if you will, that can be applied immediately. And so this new light is how to apply the teachings of the gospel in our daily lives, because knowledge by itself doesn't do us any good. It's what we do with that knowledge that allows our inner transformation, that allows our bodies and our souls to be beacons of light that illuminate ourselves and the spaces around us. But simply the acquisition of knowledge does not do that. It's putting it into practice that generates this new light that would shine that Jesus is talking about. And this whole message today, this lecture was originally delivered in our Concafres webinar. And the message was that if we have peace at home, then we'll have peace in the world. And peace at home, of course, begins with us, right? We have to have peace in our minds before we can create peace in our actions. And when we create peace in our actions, then we generate that peace at home. And then when you replicate this throughout all of our homes, and that is how we bring peace into the world. But it does begin with us, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So if we think about our home, right, it said from this book, The Jesus at Home, it says, in your house, the table is the place for your bread. On it, you receive from the Lord the food that you need each day. And so around it, why not plant the seeds of happiness and peace in conversation and thought? And so this is something for us to really think about. Because in this book, and there's this interesting story about the food that goes on our table. This is from the first chapter, and Jesus is asking a woman there at the table with them. He asks her, like, what do you do with your lentils, which is like a bean, right? What do you do with your beans before you cook them? And she says, well, of course, I put them on the stove and water long enough for them to become soft, and then I season them to make them taste good. And then Jesus asks her, well, would you bring raw dough to the table, like bread dough that is not being cooked. And she says, well, of course not. In order to make it edible, I would have to put it into the oven and have it cook. And then so Jesus gives his lesson. He says, in heaven, too, there is a festive banquet where our sentiments must serve the divine glory. Most of the time, the home is a preparatory oven. And what may seem to us like affliction or suffering in the home is actually a resource for the spirit. Just the same way, right, that we cook that raw bread dough to make bread to be a sustenance for the body, the difficulties in the home are like this oven that allows our spirit to grow. And he says that the soul that is awakened to the Lord's will receives the most enlightening blessings from its renewing struggles, because only by living with others in the home and by studying aspirations and inclinations that are not like ours, and by observing the defects of others and learning to put up with them, and I'm going to repeat that, by observing the defects of others and learning to put up with them, can we only learn to overcome our own imperfections, thus that we too would become palatable spirits on this holy path. And so to plant these seeds of happiness and peace, this Jesus has given us the recipe, right? We have to allow the environment of our home and the difficulties that we encounter to soften us, right? Like those lentils. And our responses to tolerating the defects of others and engaging in the school of the soul is like our seasoning, right? So that we can begin to allow our soul to evolve from a cold, hard bean to a warm soup, or from a cold, lumpy mass of bread dough to bread that is palatable to eat. And so like this, we transform ourselves. And Emmanuel said in the introduction to this book, which I really loved, it says, when the gospel enters the home, the soul opens its doors to the divine master more easily. And so this really is the case, right, for having the gospel at home. And in our study tonight, we're going to talk about the benefits of the gospel at home, and then actually how we conduct that gospel. And I understand that the timing here is a little bit fortuitous, because Angie ought to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just a couple of weeks ago that in the Get to Know Spiritism course that you all had the gospel at home class. Is that true? Was it just a couple Saturdays ago?
Yes, you are right.
So this, for those of you that were there, this will be somewhat of a review, but then, we hear the same information many times. There's a lot of repetition, but there's always something that we hear that is for us. And that is if we remain ourselves open to it. And then of course, there's all of our friends that are with us, that are receiving with us. So there's always a divine appointment that causes us to be where we are at the time that we are there. So tonight's lesson really is about the gospel at home, right? And consistency is key. The gospel at home it's a family meeting that happens on the same day and the same time every week. And the intention is to study the gospel of Jesus in the light of the Spiritist doctrine, and for the family to pray together. And there are so many benefits. And it's not just praying together, right? It's that causes the benefits. There are many, many other benefits. And in Missionaries of the Light, Emmanuel said, remember that the revelation of truth is progressive. And as you appeal for divine help for your soul, pay heed to the sacred duties that the earth has arranged for you each day. So what does that mean? See, it's not just that the revelation of truth has its progress. And when we study at home, right, we are receiving continual dosages of the revelation of truth. But Emmanuel's point, he's saying, as you appeal for the help for your soul, pay attention to the sacred duties that has been arranged for us each day on earth. So that means now we take that progressive revelation of truth and we apply it to our daily duties, right? So it's like that message that we got from Jesus on the previous slide that said, we have this school of the soul that is the home, and that all of part of us becoming softened like those beans and seasoned and becoming cooked like that dough, how the school of the soul is like this oven and this seasoning. It's also that place where we learn to tolerate each other's defects. It's also that place where we practice love and charity. And those are those sacred duties that have been arranged for us each day that are ready for us to apply these increasingly progressive revelations of truth that we get each week at home during this family meeting. So this is important for us as we think about this progression, as we talk about the gospel at home tonight, is let's keep thinking about the home being the school of the soul, and the revelation of truth being progressive, and the daily duties in the home that are our opportunity to apply what we have learned. So school of the soul, revelation of truth, apply what you've learned in our sacred duties. That's the thread that weaves our conversation together tonight. And so the question becomes, so why should we do this, right? We know we have this theme, right? We have school of the soul, that is the home. We have this progressive revelation of truth, and then we have this opportunity to practice and to heed our divine duties and to practice what we've learned. So the question is, well, why do this? What could we hope to achieve? And I think sometimes, we sometimes approach questions in an interesting manner. We say, why should I do that? I think sometimes the question we should ask is, what will happen if I don't do that? Right? What's the cost of doing nothing? I think this is also a very good question, because see, if we know that the home is the school of the soul, and we know that the progression, that the revelation of truth is progressive, and that our opportunity to demonstrate what we've learned happens in our daily duties, our divine duties at home. Now, if we don't take an opportunity in our gospel at home to actually engage in that conversation and study of that progressive revelation of truth, what is our position then when it comes time to apply? If we've got nothing to apply, how can we hope then to evolve and for our soul to progress, right? So I think it's often a good question when we're asking ourselves and trying to make a decision. Well, why should I do that? Or what will happen if I don't? What is the cost of doing nothing? Because sometimes I think, I've heard it said, and I can't remember whether it was Chico Xavier or Givaldo Franco. I cannot remember which one of those mediums brought this message, but one of them said, it's not enough to we think that if we just don't do bad things, that we're doing okay. We actually have to do good, right? We can't just not do bad things. So the cost of doing nothing here is not evolving, and that's not sufficient to progress. But the most important reason, of course, to do the gospel at home is to invite Jesus into our homes. And the high spirits that come when we are consistent in that same time, same day, every week, that consistency will then bring high spirits to our home who will help us and who will help out the people in our home with us. So that's really the most important part of tonight's talk. And then Joanna Giangelis, she brings us a beautiful message too about why do the gospel at home. She says, with the study of the gospel at home, we can receive solutions for the dramas that appear in the family. Now, which one of us on this call tonight has no drama in our family? I can bet every single one of us has problems and dramas in our family. How can I know that for sure? Because what do we say? What's one part of the lesson today? The family, the home is the school of the soul. That means there's something to learn. And we don't learn in ease and grace, right? We learn with problems. So all of us have drama in our family. So already, Joanna has me at we can receive solutions, right? Solutions to the dramas that appear in our family. And then she says, for knowledge and clarification and courage to nullify mistakes and end disturbances. Now think about that. Knowledge and clarification. So knowledge, okay, great. We're going to learn something. Of course, we talked about the progressive revelation of knowledge. But see, just getting knowledge it's not really enough. Now the clarification means, I know this, and now I know what to do with it, right? So you learn something, then you get the clarity, like, oh, how can I use this thing, right? And then she's adding the third element, right, which is courage. Courage to nullify mistakes and end disturbances. That's where we take action, right? Acquire the knowledge, then get clear how to apply it, and then take action. And she's saying that the action will actually nullify mistakes and end disturbances. This is beautiful. I mean, and this is just 3 sentences. This is how Joanna G. Angelis is, right? She's such a high spirit. 3 sentences is like enough to study for weeks, because there's so much there. And then she says, it will predispose us for peace. That in and of itself, if you think about it, we're not predisposed for peace. What's the first thing we think when we see something? We're thinking about something that's not peaceful. Most of the time, our first thought, we scan our environment for negativity. We scan what people say to us for hidden offenses. We scan our images in the mirror for imperfection. Our family environment and our family interactions, we scour them for something to pick apart. We have to train ourselves to think positive first. We have to train ourselves to look for the good. We have to train ourselves for peace. And what she's saying here is to predispose us. Now, just so we're clear, what predispose means, it means that what's your first orientation, right? If we have a predisposition to peace, that means that in everything I just said, it would be towards peace. So when we look in the mirror, we see peace. When our family speaks to us, our first thought is, I hear peace, I see peace, I respond with peace. If we are predisposed to peace, that means when we look around in our family environment, we look for peace, we see peace, we surround ourselves for peace. I mean, we're not doing that, right? None of us are doing that. Maybe those of us that are really disciplined do that some of the time, right? But if we're doing that all the time, we are either on a mission here and a high spirit, or that's a target, right? That's where we're trying to go, which is why Joanna G. Angelis brings this to us. And then the last one, and this is important, right? And this is all of us. It will help anyone that seeks renovation, enthusiasm, and freedom. And this now means all of us, right? Because the renovation, that's the inner transformation. That's the inner enlightenment. That's why we're all here. We all could be doing something else on Tuesday night, right? It's a cold night. We could be curled up in front of the fireplace doing any number of things besides being here to cultivate our own souls. And then to bring enthusiasm and freedom, well, that's the whole point of this, right? Nobody is doing this work of the soul to remain in bondage, right? Or to be unhappy, right? We want to be enthusiastic about the work that we're doing. And so this brings us a lot about why we study the gospel at home from Joanna G. Angelis. And so now that we're going to hear a series of benefits, in addition, of course, to, as if we needed to add more, because I think what Joanna G. Angelis said is surely enough in and of itself, but there's so many more benefits. So in our homes, right, this says assistance is provided to suffering spirits who may be at home. Most of us, if not all of us, have suffering spirits in our home, right? Because we're suffering, right? So we're all transforming here. Well, what's so beautiful is that, spirits who are willing to be treated receive treatment. In the book Missionaries of the Light, there are many examples of André Louise's teachers taking him to various homes where the gospel is taking place. And André is taught how to give treatment. He observes the different situations that families at home are experiencing, and then how to provide treatment, whether it is giving passes to the suffering spirits, whether it is bringing inspiration, whether it's cleaning the home. There's all sorts of assistance that is provided. And our homes are also the training ground for those spirits who are helping. I'm going to say that again. We saw all throughout Missionaries of the Light, also in the domains of mediumship and in messengers, that André Louise, who was a student in the spirit world, learning how to be of service, visited many realms, and many homes on earth, accompanied by spirit instructors. And many of the homes, as I said, were places where the gospel at home was taking place. And each one of those different situations, Andre Luis was given an opportunity to study the physical manifestations of what was happening on the spiritual realm. And then Andre, along with a group of other students, were educated on the spiritual causes of those situations and then allowed to be part of the solution. So remember, I said the home was the school of the soul. Well, it's not just us. Right? There are also the souls that are suffering, that are receiving assistance, and the good spirits that are coming, because every spirit that comes to help is not necessarily at the top of the evolution of spirits that we, the progression of the different levels of evolution. They're not always at the top. Each spirit is on its way and being of service. And so our homes actually provide that school as well. So let's expand our thinking about what it means to be the school of the soul, our home, because it's not just our soul or just the suffering spirits who may be with us. I'm going to pause real quick and just see if there's any questions or comments before we move on, because I want to make sure that I don't skip over that too quickly in case there's any questions. If you have any questions, feel free just to unmute at any time to ask your questions. So another beautiful benefit is the deep cleaning of the home environment. And I don't know if you can see that there's this moving picture here, that light and air are coming in to the home. So much light and so many positive vibrations are brought in when we do the gospel at home. And it's the consistency that attracts the good spirits that come to help us with this. And then there's also this idea that those who participate are involved in light and strengthened in faith. Think about it. Consistency and good results become a positive feedback loop. Because if you're consistent in something, the consistency in and of itself does two things. One is that it allows that habit time to build up, and then anything done consistency over time will produce results. So consistency and results, that produces this positive feedback loop. And then the random reading, right? Suppose when you're reading the gospel, it's a random reading, but it's always the right topic, right? Anyone on this call who does the gospel at home, you know this, right? You think you're opening the gospel at random, but it's exactly the topic that needs to be discussed, either for you or for your family. And then throughout the week, that message gets reinforced. When we think about, right, school of the soul, progressive revelation of truth, put it into action. When you take the message and you put it into action, put it into practice, you get good results. And that becomes this positive feedback loop that now strengthens your faith, because you see consistency pays off. The messages apply. You apply the message, you get good results. You're consistent, then you get consistent good results. That strengthens your faith, and then you complete that circle. So this is nothing. What's the word I want to find? This is not rocket science. This is basic, right? This is basic math. So, also, the gospel at home strengthens our physical and spiritual health. How does this work? I actually found a passage I wanted to read to you from Missionaries of the Light. This is an instructor named Alexandre that is giving Andre a short lesson. And he says, every second, Andre, each one of us receives trillions of rays of all types, and we emit our own energies that are peculiar to us, and which leave to act on the plane of life, sometimes in regions very far from us. But in this circle of continuous exchange, the divine rays emitted by sanctifying prayer are converted into high-level factors of effective and definitive cooperation in the healing of the body, the renewal of the soul, and the enlightenment of the conscience, because all elevated prayer is a source of creative and vivifying magnetism, and anyone who cultivates prayer with the proper balance of sentiment gradually becomes a radiating focal point of divine energies. And that's anyone. I did not add that word. That's directly from the book. So I think that's the case, right, for strengthening our spiritual and physical health. And the gospel at home, it also promotes family harmony, providing an environment of peace of mind and mutual understanding. And when you think about it, what do we harmonize around normally? Think about it. Usually our conversations are not that elevated, right? We may be talking about a TV show that maybe is not that elevated. We may be arguing about something really small that when we think about the massive, infinite nature of the eternality of the soul and how infinitesimally small one lifetime is. So one little situation is not measurable, but we focus on it and then we harmonize around how horrible that situation is. But when we harmonize on the gospel, we're involved in like all these good fluids. And so this is part of this harmony that gets produced from this simple weekly act at the same time, same day of the week, once a week, none for not that long. Well, let's learn more. What else does the gospel do? It brings everyone in the family together from all different generations, right? Parents and children, from their siblings and spouses. And, when we think about the different generations, usually our interests differ, right? The older, even me and my kids, I don't even like the music that they listen to. The shows that they watch, like they're just one generation is different. But think about too, I have not been blessed enough to have my grandparents in my life. I never got to meet my grandparents. But I can imagine that their interests and tastes would be different from mine, right? Most of the time, our interests differ by generation, but the gospel brings everyone together because we all can find comfort in the timeless and infinite nature of the messages of the gospel. And so here's our guide for conducting the gospel at home. So we pick a fixed day and time every day. And when most of the family can get together, you prepare the environment, you set your table, you get a bottle of water. And it doesn't matter if you have a bottle with water with a cap, it doesn't matter if the cap is on or off, it doesn't matter. You get your glasses and then you get the gospel. And then to harmonize first, you can sing songs of praise, sing with joy and good cheer, linking the heart and the mind to God. And this is why we call singing songs in Spiritism Christian joy, because that joy is what harmonizes us and connects us to God. And then you could read a short, uplifting message. There's lots of books that have messages in them, like Living Spring or Daily Bread. You hear those of you that come to our Saturday classes, Rafael often has a message that he asks us to read from, like the Daily Bread. There's lots of wonderful books. Joanna Giangelis has a small book called Happy Life that you can open. And what's nice about that book, Happy Life, from Joanna Giangelis, it's not as dense in richness and difficult to unpack as the message I read earlier. It's just very simple, short messages that really even a teen or a young person could understand and appreciate. And then an initial prayer, right? Whoever is there, anyone can lead that initial prayer, but to do it loud and clear. And then to choose the lesson reading, to choose an item or open a page from the gospel to read at random or to read consecutively. Some people just start on chapter 1 and just read their way through maybe a couple of paragraphs at a time, but or you could just read randomly. But we know, right, that when you read randomly, that it's not us, right? That allows the spirits around us to pick the page, to open the page that we most desperately need at that time. And so this gives us the instructions, right? Open the pages of the gospel and read aloud some of its passages of truth and comfort, for which you will receive the inspiration of the spiritual friends who assist you. There is no need for reading for more than 10 minutes. And so there's this story, and again, my memory's going a little bit. I think I'm starting to age a little bit, and it's all good. I welcome that. But there's the story of Andre and one of his teachers. I'm not sure if it was in Missionaries or if it was in Messengers, but they visited one of the homes where they had the gospel. And there was the mother, I remember, was reading, and the spirits that were with Andre, they involved the mother reading in fluids, and these good fluids, these rays of positive energy to elevate her thinking so that she could connect with the good spirits to give an inspirational interpretation of what was read. And the purpose of that was to clarify and to edify all of the brothers and sisters on the spiritual realm that were attending. Because remember, when we do this, we're not alone, right? We're never alone. There's more of our brothers and sisters on the spiritual plane than are embodied and incarnated at any given time. So we are never alone, right? So that was what that elevated message that Andre's instructors involved the woman who was leading the gospel with was intended to not just uplift her and her family, but for all those brothers and sisters. So think about that for a minute, right? Let's come out of our selfish mentality of, oh, I don't want to spend my whatever night of the week doing that, or whatever day of the week doing that. I want to do this instead because I need this time to do whatever it is we think we want to do. But how magnificent to be used like that. What if we thought about, let me do the gospel at home, because my home is a school of the soul. And if I study the gospel at home, I will be a receptacle and a channel for this progressive revelation of truth, right? That's going to be revealed through me. And it's not just, remember now we talked about, school of the soul, progressive revelation of truth, put it into practice. But it's being put into practice as I am speaking it because the spirits around me are being edified. How beautiful to be used like that. I just think sometimes we have to expand our thinking about the things we think we don't want to do and start asking ourselves, what happens if I don't do that? What are we missing? What look at the blessings we miss out on when we don't offer ourselves and to be of service. It's just, these are questions we should be asking ourselves. And so the rest of the guide, right, is you do the reading, and then you comment on the reading, and the point is to highlight any of the teachings that can be put into, oh, looks like we have a question. Let me read this. Cara, if you read a message one day and then on another gospel at home, you open the same message, should you read and talk about it again or get another reading? Oh my God, Paula, what a great question. Read the same message. I cannot tell you how many times my family has opened to the same, not just the same chapter, but the same page multiple times. And it happened consecutively until we got what we were supposed to get out of that. Even if you're sitting, and Paula, even if it's a short message that seems so simple that you and your family are like, wait, we just got this last week. The question then becomes, it's not how do I figure out the message? The discussion then, Paula, is how did we apply this last week? Then you have a conversation about what went well, what didn't go well. When it didn't go well, what could we have done differently? When we did do it well, what did we do that worked particularly well to apply this learning? And as we continue to go forward, let's assume that your family got it and you practiced it perfectly the week before. Well, then the conversation becomes, let's talk about how we can apply this in the future, and then what challenges might we see if we apply this in this situation or that situation or in this situation, right? So inevitably, when we get those messages consistently over like that, because I had to ask too, Paula, because I was like, Anna and Flavia, I'm getting the same message like every week, and they're like, just be patient, just read it anyway. And sometimes what happens is it takes sometimes 2 or 3 weeks for it, remember we talked about progressive revelation of truth, right? The progression of that message will land in each one of your souls differently. Sometimes it may come in a dream. Sometimes it may come when you're taking a shower. It could be very random when the full impact of the lesson hits, and then you're enabled to know what to do. I hope that answers your question, and I'm certainly open if you want to unmute and ask anything else or put in the chat. I definitely welcome your questions. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, Rafael. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rafael. And I also want to just name the human element here, because Rafael is naming the spiritual element, right? That as humans, we're never going to connect fully with the spiritual message. But Paula, I don't know if your family experienced this, but I can tell you my family started getting annoyed, right? Like like especially when I was doing it with my teens who were living at home, like, Mom, we've done this like 5 weeks in a row. And that was my opportunity for us to pray for for the patience and the willingness to open ourselves to what we were missing, right? Because our minds had told ourselves that we weren't listening to the idea that Rafael just said. In our minds, we had decided, after repetition number 5, like we surely had, we had gotten it, we got it. So I had to pray for like the patience and the willingness to keep going. So I don't know if that helps at all, but my family, we're the textbook problem children for trying to figure this stuff out. So always happy to share like our struggles, because as the kids say, the struggle is real, right? The struggle is definitely real. Exactly. Yes, I love that. And then one last thing, thank you, Rafael. I love that. And then one last thing on this before we pivot here is there's a a 2-volume set of books called Living the Gospel. I think I can't think of the title in Portuguese. Is it Segundo do Evangelho, Rafael? The 2 books Andre Luiz did. Oh, Vivendo, right? Vivendo. Yes, Vivendo o Evangelho. So that's a 2-book series. And then this is Andre Luiz's commentary on the gospel. And it's actually done by item number. So if anyone's getting the same kind of like page and item number, that's also might be helpful to see like what the additional what the slant is, because Andre Luiz's commentary tends to be very very simple and easy to digest. So that's also an opportunity for us. And then according to this, the suggestion is, have some songs at the end to prepare for the closing prayer. And then for the final prayer, we have one person leads the prayer of gratitude to God for the lessons and support, right? Because there's so much support that was received during the gospel at home. And then asking for the water to be blessed. And then each person gets a glass of water that has been blessed during the service. And this says duration about 30 minutes. That could vary, it's not exactly 30 minutes. There's really no prescribed time, but it could vary from that time frame, depending on how many people you have there and how long the passages are that you're reading. So then the blessed water. This is a message from Emmanuel. It says, water is one of the most simple and receptive bodies on earth. It is kind of like the pure foundation on which heaven's medication can be printed. And so this water that gets blessed, this is, I thought I saw another text message. The water that is blessed for the family, even though there's a group prayer said over it, the water still brings benefits to each person's body. And it's almost a medicine for each one. And the prayer that I say in my home when we ask for the water to be blessed, I ask for the water to be a medicine for me and my family's willingness to apply what we've learned, right? And to apply what we've learned during the difficulties that we experience during the week, because it's so easy to apply lessons when things are easy, but to be able to apply the lessons when things are difficult. And so, so the blessed water is a very, very important part of the harmonization and the blessing that we receive and when we do the gospel at home. And so there's also this idea of collective prayer, right? So there's this message from the gospel that says prayer in a group is more powerful when all those who pray are joined by the same heartfelt thought and have the same purpose, because it is as if they all speak in one voice and in unison. And I believe you all also studied this a couple of weeks ago and get to know Spiritism, but when we pray, right, we make our prayers and we address them to God, but really there's a whole team of good spirits whose job it is to hear the prayers of those who are praying fervently from the heart, and then go and execute to assist to the degree that is possible. And the short movie series Sozinho, we see this, right? This the main character's wife says a prayer for him because her husband is in danger, and then you can see in the movie the image of a good spirit who hears a prayer and then calls her brothers and sisters, the brothers and sisters on the spiritual plane, to mobilize and to go and do their best to give guidance through thoughts and through fluids and through magnetism to this woman who was praying, to her husband, and then to the men that he was with, and to the brothers and sisters who are on the spiritual realm who were influencing him and whose influence he was following. So she was just one person praying. So now when all of us pray collectively, now just think about how different that is, right? And what's important here, this one voice in one voice and in unison. I remember when I first started coming to the center and we had this class on gospel at home and on collective prayer, Anna Paula said to me, listen, when we're praying together at the center, because I was already, training, I knew I wanted to work in the center. She said, when we're praying together, it is very important that when one person is praying, that when you listen to that person praying, that you are repeating every word that they're saying as they say it. So for example, when Giada was saying the prayer to open our opening prayer for tonight, I was saying each word after her. She said, as we do the study for Jesus at home. And I said, when we do the study for Jesus at home, we ask God to be with us. We ask God to be with us. I'm literally repeating every word she's saying in my mind so that that's all I'm thinking about. Because if I don't repeat every word that Angiata or whoever else is praying, if I'm not repeating those words in my mind, guess what I'm not doing? Thinking about the prayer. So when we repeat those words in our mind, we are doing exactly what Emmanuel is saying. We are in one voice together, and it makes the prayer very, very powerful. And think about all the light that this draws to our home. It draws a lot of light to our home. Rafael, if you would do me a favor and just monitor the chat, if there's any more questions, would you let me know? Because I think we're starting to put prayer requests now into the chat, and I don't want to keep getting distracted looking at it. So will you help me with that? Yep. Perfect, thank you. And we're almost done. So then there's the question, who can participate? Who is allowed to participate in the gospel at home? Anyone, whoever in your home. It doesn't, not just family. If you have guests over, invite them to come to do the gospel with you. It's not mandatory. Like if my children don't want to do it, I don't force them to do it, right? But so whoever who can participate in the gospel at home, anybody in your home that wants to do it with you, anybody. And the times when nobody wants to do it with me, guess what? Can I do the gospel at home by myself? Yes, because guess what? We are never alone, right? So what the important thing is, if you do the gospel at home, is that you read out loud. Now that's not so weird, right? But here's the part that can be a little bit weird. So I read out loud and I actually have the fraternal conversation by myself. So for example, like this last week, one of the things it talked about was to be consistent, I believe. I think it was consistency was a message, to be consistent in our application of knowledge. So I just said, so I think where this could be challenging for me, I just started talking out loud as if there was someone sitting right there, because there was, right? We know that there was. And I just talked about how I thought I could apply what I learned, where I thought it might be challenging, what my current situation was like because I had not been applying what I was learning, and how I think it might go, what I think the application of what I learned might look like. Because that's it. We don't have to like try and unpack the deep meaning of the gospel. The whole point of the fraternal conversation is just to talk about applying it. So I bring us back to where we started, right? It's the home is the school of the soul. The revelation of truth is progressive, and we have opportunities every day in our divine duties to practice what we've learned, right? So that's the whole point, is to the degree that the truth has been progressively revealed to us, we allow it to progress further by practicing and demonstrating that we can apply what we've learned, and that allows that progression to continue. So that's what we do. We're at home alone, or we're at home and nobody wants to participate, no problem. I do it anyway. I talk to myself. I have a fraternal conversation with my brothers and sisters on the spiritual plane, and I'm not one of those gifted mediums that sees them, and I'm good with that. I just read out loud and I have my fraternal conversation out loud, and it feels a little funny, but I'm perfectly fine with it. And I'd like to think I still receive all the same benefits. And so, is that a question? Okay. And so, Rafael, did you say something? Okay. So, yeah, so this says, so world peace starts at home, right? This is what we talked about. And so instructions for the gospel at home can be found on this website, globaljesus.net, and it's available in 3 languages. So you can get it in English, in Spanish, and in Portuguese. And it gives the full steps on how to do the gospel at home. And it's telling us, right, that world peace begins under the roofs in which we shelter ourselves, where we live. And if we do not learn to live in peace between these 4 walls, how on earth can we live in peace with other nations, right? So this brings us back to the beginning where we started, that world peace begins at home. And our peace at home starts within our own minds, where we make the decision that we're going to do the gospel at home, that we're going to do it at the same time of the same day, each day of the week. And we have the opportunity to receive all the blessings that what we've discussed tonight. And so this is one of my favorite slides. This, I love this picture because it really shows what happens, right? So this is the home. There's all this light that's involved in the home from doing the gospel, right? You see the high spirits, one magnetizing the water. Another one is like, this is the family that's doing the gospel. You can see that they're getting passes, they're getting good energy. You can see the suffering spirits getting treated. You can see there's a spirit that's more unevolved that is leaving the home because the vibration of light and enlightenment is not, the spirit cannot harmonize. You can see a brother that's on post that is hoping to guard the home. So much light comes, and realize now that this light is extending beyond the home. It helps the whole neighborhood. And in fact, when I say my prayers, I actually ask for light to go to the whole neighborhood. I actually ask for that. But I love this picture because it gives the mind something to look at and to hold on to. And so we just have this message, and I think we're just about done. This is a message from Missionaries of the Light. It says, a home is not only an abode for bodies, but it's also, above all, is an abode for the souls. The domestic sanctuary, inhabited by persons who love prayer and uplifting sentiments, becomes a sublime field for the most beautiful spiritual flowerings and harvests. And so since we are planting seeds, why not plant the seeds that are going to bring us what we want? Remembering that the home is the school of the soul, that the revelation of knowledge is progressive, and that we have the opportunity to practice what we have learned. This is from Emmanuel. They have brought us this thread that is weaving through this message tonight. And the invitation to us all is that Jesus is waiting for you on the other side of your door. Why not open the door to light and transformation? So that is the end of this lecture tonight. Would love to just open the space for any comments or questions before we go to the past. I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity. So any thoughts or comments or questions about what we learned tonight? Mhm. I love that. Yes, people, I love that you said that. People who come to my home now who who used to come to my home before I started doing the gospel at home years ago, they say, "Wow, your house is so different. Like I just feel it's just nice in here." You know, and I just smile.
Kara,
Yes,
about the
Paula.
water that it's blessed, how long can, like, for how long can we drink it? If we need to drink it right away, it can last a week.
It lasts indefinitely, that blessing. Once it's in the water, the blessing of the water actually changes the molecular composition of the water. Once it's blessed, it's blessed. And there's also if you only say for example for whatever reason you can only like bless a small glass of water, and you want to drink it throughout the week, you can actually pour a little bit of that blessed water into another bottle of water and just say a prayer and ask for that blessed water to be extended through the week if you need it.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. And Gianna, were you going to add something to that? Looked like you were going to say something. No? Okay. Any other questions, comments before we move on to the past? On the subject of water, make sure you get your water so that when Angiata gives us the past treatment that you have all of your water present. Thank you so much, everyone, for being together with me tonight. It's always an honor and a joy to be in this space with you as we learn together, because I'm learning as we go too. So you hear all my stumbles and fumbles, and I'm just super grateful to be part of this journey with you. And so let's now prepare for the past.
All right. I hope you all got your water. Let's start the path by preparing ourselves. So let's close our eyes, taking a deep breath, and just taking a moment to calming down and going inside ourselves. Let's breathe slowly and deeply and try to relax our body and also our mind. Try to let go of all the anxiety, all your worries and your problems, putting your mind in a good mental state. Let's imagine Jesus being in front of us with all his light, open arms, smiling to us. We raise our vibration to connect to the vibration of Jesus and the good spiritual friends. And we also put ourselves in prayer. We ask God and our guardian angel to be by our side, helping us to receive this path and opening ourselves to all the light that we are about to receive. We also ask our guardian angels and all the good spirits here present to prepare our houses and our environment so we can receive the passes. Let's now proceed to the dispersion pass. Let's imagine a crystal clear water falling over us. This water is full of blessings and involves us. It cleans our body. It removes all the energies, the negative thoughts, all the feelings of tiredness, anger, and it penetrates in our body, our organs, our cells, our centers of forces, and it cleans everything and help us to restore our energies. This water that keeps falling over our heads is detaching ourselves from all the negative feelings, nervous tensions, afflictions, and anxiety. Open yourself to allow this cleansing by putting all your difficulties and sensations in the hands of the good spirits. In this moment, we feel ourselves spiritually clean. We also can imagine this moment, this water cleaning our houses, cleaning the environment in which we live, releasing all the negative feelings of selfishness, possession, helping to clean this sacred place in which we live, harmonizing this environment for us and our family members. Thank you, God. We now proceed to the replenishing path. We see this bright light over our heads. We feel all this grace of restoration involving our whole being, re-energizing us morally and spiritually. We visualize a team of good spirits around us, providing us with passes, making us full of this light, this bright and beautiful light that will be providing us good energies and is strengthening our being. This light will bring us good mental thoughts. It will bring us good energies for our physical body. It will bring good harmony to our house. We also see this light covering every single corner of our houses and involving all the people who live with us. And also, we can imagine the places in which we work being cleaned and being filled with this beautiful and bright light full of love and good energies. Let's thank Jesus in the team of good spirits, asking them to also extend this good light to all the humanity, bringing this light to the houses of people who are sick and in distress, and also bringing the same light to the hospitals and helping all the people who are suffering in this moment. Right now, we ask for the water that is set in our table to be blessed by the hands of the good spirits, workers of Christ. In this moment, they are blessing this water and putting all the benefits for our spiritual and physical. Thank you, God. Let's move now to our final prayer. Being thankful to God, first for the blessing of this incarnation, for being here incarnated in this life, and being open to learn, to help, and to love. As Cara said in this lesson tonight, let's ask God and our mentors to open our hearts and help us to open the door of our houses to Jesus and to the good spirits. May God and the good spirits help us to have the discipline to make the gospel at home something that it will be a priority in our houses. We also ask God and the good spirits to always guide our actions, helping us to walk towards our spiritual enlightenment, helping us to be better people, to work inside of ourselves, to be kind and be good, and help us to learn how to love more and more. May we all go and bring this light and spread to all the people with whom we interact this week. Thank you. So be it.
Es tu oportunidad de ser feliz y de progresar. A cada prueba, a cada dolor, Dios te enseña el valor, nunca se deja de luchar. Ama la vida y da pasos firmes, no importa si caídas habrá. Dios a cada instante